As a church comes to the end of its year, it looks to the end of all time. And so we hear many apocalyptic predictions today in our readings, in particular, the gospel. But if we take a reasoned look at them, we will see that what Jesus said would happen has indeed already happened, is still happening, will probably continue to happen in the future. In some sense, every generation witnesses the signs of the end times, and each and every one of us as an individual faces the end of the world in the span of our own lifetime, be that short or long. Now, this isn't to say that the world won't someday come to its final conclusion as prophetically predicted, yet it is to say that in some sense, this really isn't our concern. For if there is one very consistent theme in the scriptural predictions of the apocalypse, it is that the day and the time of the end of the world is completely unpredictable. It shall remain hidden and unknowable. What Jesus then is trying to tell us is that in the midst of whatever we must face in the span of our own lifetime, no matter how frightening or disturbing, we must persevere as people of faith. There will be people who look at the occurrences around them and find reason to question their beliefs. We hear people say it. If there really is a God, how would he allow this to happen, they ask, as indeed people have asked in regard to every war or natural and human disaster and epidemic in history. Some find themselves questioning their faith in the face of every personal trial or disappointment. It cannot be that way with us if we really want to be counted as disciples of Jesus Christ. He himself advises us that it is by our perseverance, our patient endurance, that we will save our lives. That endurance is an interesting expression because it implies that we need not be able to understand or explain all that happens globally or personally. Indeed, we need not like it or even accept it. We can ask why and grumble against it if we feel it necessary. But we must persevere through it without losing faith, without ever falling into despair. How are we to do this, we might wonder, especially when things get really bad? By remembering that it is Jesus in whom we're asked to place our faith. Jesus who was brought to trial before kings and governors. Jesus who was delivered up by a friend and put to death. And yet, in all of this, not a hair of his head was harmed, in the sense that in spite of the horrible things to which he was subjected, even in spite of the terrible death he endured, Jesus was not destroyed. He continues to live, and he promises the very same victory over death to us if we keep faith. So in the face of predictions of future destruction, even in the face of present realities of conflict, terrorist threats, mass shootings, disasters, disease, and death, let us not grow overwhelmed with fear, but rather endure with patience and even some measure of peace, believing that God is truly the God of life, who has raised Jesus from the dead, and trusting that no evil that we have to experience, present or future, can ever rob us of the resurrected life that God promises, just as long as that evil never succeeds in robbing us of our faith.